There's never been a better time to get out of our own fears and get out of our own way and get on YouTube. And I'll give you a few reasons. One, YouTube is now recommending smaller channels more than ever before. It's completely changed over the last year. So you don't have to wait as long for success. The second thing is people are still going to YouTube for answers they can't get from ChatGPT. And ChatGPT sends me thousands of views a month for questions it can't answer. And the third part of why YouTube is such an incredible opportunity is because if people are going somewhere to solve a problem and you have a business that solves that problem, the people that go on YouTube looking to solve those problems are much closer to becoming buyers, customers, clients. So it is just this incredible trifecta of opportunity right now.
Welcome back to Unstoppable After 50. Today, I'm speaking with Jerry Potter. Jerry is a world-renowned expert when it comes to helping people like you and me get started with YouTube and getting their YouTube channel set up. Now, if you have a hobby, maybe a business you want to promote, maybe just a passion, something you're really interested in, having a YouTube channel could be a great way to reach more people. And today's conversation will definitely help you take a step in that direction. So stay tuned for a profitable conversation with Jerry Potter. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Well, listen, I appreciate your time. I appreciate the fact that as a customer of yours, when I reached out to you, you weren't some like distant guy. You graciously accepted coming on and having I think what's going to be a really interesting conversation about why guys over 50 should really seriously think about either starting a YouTube channel or maybe if they have one, dusting it off and getting it out there again. So thank you very much. And thank you for helping me get this channel started.
Yeah, congratulations on getting video going with your show and all your recent growth. I think that's amazing, and it really is an unbelievable time. And I want to say, if somebody is over 50 and they are having that resistance, as I've gotten older, when I turned 30, I was like, whatever, 40, whatever. And I turned 50 last year, and I literally, and this might be the first time I've even said that in public. I just let people believe what they believe, but I literally went through something where I was just like, oh, I'm this other age now. And so if people are feeling that, I just want to reassure people, and you probably talk about this on the show all the time, it's so normal, but it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things.
Oh, amen to that. Typically it's in the context of working out, maybe not lifting as much as you used to when you were 20 or, running as fast as you did when you were, 18, because that's all mind shift, changes, expecting that you can still be what you were. But YouTube, as we both know, and everyone watching or listening to this, it's a public forum. So you are out there. And there's other head trash, which I went through, which we're going to talk about, and hopefully maybe help some guys. So, Jerry, first thing, if a guy is listening or watching this on YouTube, and they're thinking, hey, you know what? I'm over 50, I'm over 60, I'm over 70. I'm probably too old to get started on YouTube. What would you say?
When I first started my business, I noticed that a lot of the people who were buying my offers were in a certain age group, basically within 20 years of my age. And part of me was, a little offended because I'm like, you don't have to be 35 to have this work. Like, you can be 20 and have this work. But I kind of finally realized people like to learn from people like them. People like to watch people like them. Now, hopefully we watch people that are not like us as well for diversity's sake, but it doesn't matter what age you are, whatever you're talking about on YouTube, there's going to be somebody who wants to hear about it because they are over 50 as well. But even within that, if you have something really unique, it doesn't matter what age it is. Like, if I have some super crazy niche hobby and the only person talking about it is 20 or 80, I'm going to watch that person because, oh my God, they're talking about my thing. But the biggest thing I'll share with this is I was in a mastermind a few years ago, and a good friend, Chelsea, that was in the mastermind, I was thinking about launching this new thing. And I was like, yeah, but, and the imposter syndrome was there. What if this happens? What if that happens? All of the negative, untrue stories were running through my head. And she looked at me and she said, Jerry, don't let your own insecurities get in the way of the people who need your help. And it was just this, like, I wanted to find a microphone to hand her to drop because it was just this moment. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so true. So whatever you have to talk about on YouTube, whether it solves a problem or it entertains somebody or makes somebody feel less alone, somebody out there needs to hear it. And that is why you should consider getting out there.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. You know, I publish books or help people, you know, I help others, business owners, entrepreneurs publish books. And I always say that to them too, like, get out of your own way. You know, your inability, the time, whatever it might be, whatever head trash you might have about writing a book, if it doesn't get written, it's not going to help anybody. Now, ironically, I had that head trash. As somebody who had a YouTube channel, I think starting in 2010, at the time would literally go into a friend of mine's professional studio, shoot it in studio, and then they would produce it and we'd get it posted and all that. And it was probably ahead of my time. It was a 3-minute, each one was 3 minutes. It was called 3 and 3. It's 3 ideas in 3 minutes. And it was kind of before shorts became shorts. But I got, you know, over time, I just got away from that. And at the time, really never got big traction. But as I thought about this podcast that I'm doing now, Unstoppable After 50, Jerry, and then wanting to add a video component, mainly because a lot of people, crazy enough, watch podcast interviews on YouTube. I am one of them, but also because, as you said, YouTube is a big search engine, right? But I really wrestled with doing this. I mean, yes, there's a lot of work. Yes, there's preparation. Yes, there's environmental factors, you know, noise and all that stuff that you might have to factor in depending on where you're doing it, or sun sometimes when the sun's hitting in here. But my biggest head trash was like, 2 things. And this is, you know, I can't even believe I'm saying this publicly. One was, hey, gosh, you're looking a little bit older, Mike, than I used to look. And the second thing was, unlike an audio podcast, there are, you know, where you can't tell how many downloads someone has on an audio podcast. On YouTube, your number's right there. And I thought, geez, do I want to have one of these channels where I'm getting 20, 30 views an episode? And I wrestled with that, Jerry, for over a year. So before we kind of talk about those specifically, at least the second part, what would you have said to me a year ago if I shared that with you?
You know, one of the things that I talk about when I give a live talk, and I say, what I'm about to say is going to make a lot of people in the room really uncomfortable. I actually just did this at a conference yesterday. And I say, how many of you in the room can admit, and I raise my own hand, that you are a recovering perfectionist? And usually about half the hands in the room will go up, at least. Then sometimes I'll say, now, how many of you aren't even recovering? You just know you're all out, you know, a perfectionist. And the thing that I like to remind them of is that YouTube is not a place for perfection. It's not required. It's not even expected. You know, it's not network television for anyone who still knows, you know, what that is. Obviously, we do. And so I like to share a story about my father-in-law, who is a structural engineer for Boeing, the airplane manufacturer. He literally designs and builds airplanes. And I think we can all agree, airplane manufacturing is a place for perfection, or at least we hope they get it right. Just to put that in perspective. But yes, we want to look professional. But right now, especially as more AI-generated content is flooding YouTube, the thing that makes people more genuine is actually being real, having your flaws, everything like that. We want to, you know, we want the person to be able to see us. We want them to be able to hear us, of course, but that's it. So a couple of years ago, I was teaching a podcasting program to entrepreneurs. It was the first time I'd ever offered it, and I was teaching it live. And during the Q&A segment, somebody said, should we edit out all of the times that we say and during our podcast episodes, you know, and a lot of them going on YouTube? And I said, I don't think you need to. I think you should leave it in there unless it's just ridiculous. But if people care about the thing you're talking about, they don't even notice that. They don't notice those quirks. It's only when they're disinterested. Like, we've all consumed somebody's content and we're just like, oh my gosh, get to the point. How many times are you going to say like and but otherwise we don't care. And somebody commented back, easy for you to say, you don't ever say or And so after we got off the Q&A that day, I pulled up my most recent podcast episode. It was a 20-minute episode. I did a quick search for the word and which I say all the time. And I think I had said it 85 times in 20 minutes. Okay. So that's like 4 times a minute that I was saying. And there was a guest. It wasn't even just me talking. So I share that to put it in context that we do not have to be perfect. We just need something that people want to hear.
Yeah. And the real effort, right, should be about having that message and creating a message. And whether it's a podcast where you're maybe interviewing good, quality guests, it's to me, it's all typically about the content. I will say, the reality is, if a guy is listening to this right now and still gets stuck on that, I mean, you and I both know, and the God's honest truth is, no one cares. Really, no one really cares that Mike might have 50 views on this video, or he's got more gray in his beard than he did a couple of years ago, or any of that stuff, right? I might, but I can tell you, as you well know, no one else does, and that's the truth in reality. So
we're not that important, right?
Yeah.
We're not as important
right.
as we think we are.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, but let's talk about that. I don't like the way my video looks in public, because this is an audio and a video podcast, right?
Right.
And nobody can see your audio numbers unless you happen to share them. But the video numbers are very, very public. And when I first put my podcast on YouTube, I already had a pretty big YouTube channel, but I was like, oh, this is going to look bad if it doesn't perform as well. I actually put my podcast originally on a separate channel for that reason. And I finally realized the irony of this is, if you don't have that many views, nobody sees it anyway, first, right? Second, people are looking at usually your body of work overall. I can tell you that the person who's watching it and getting value from it definitely doesn't care how many views there are. I started a brand new channel actually 2 days ago. I've got a lot going on, and I wanted to start a channel from scratch. I'm running an experiment. Well, full disclosure, I started one 2 weeks ago, ran an experiment, shut it down, basically moved everything unlisted. Now I'm restarting the same premise with a slightly different experiment. And I decided to start this time with some YouTube shorts. And literally, by that afternoon, one YouTube short, I not only had a subscriber, I had a comment of somebody asking, when's your next video coming out? Now, this video only has a handful of views, and I didn't tell anybody about this channel. I'm still not telling anybody about this channel because I'm basically testing how fast YouTube will recommend new channels if the content is dialed in. And so I think we have to remember that. And I also like to tell people, I got my first client from YouTube with 11 days after I started. I had 17 subscribers. No video had more than 20 views. And somebody was like, hey, do you consult? And I was like, I do now. And the next day I had $500 and a couple of calls booked with somebody. So it really, again, comes back to the value that you're giving.
Yeah.
And the person that may or may not be judging you doesn't have even 50 views.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, and then I want to get back to the core. So this is not like a personal consultation, but I'll ask you anyway. But when you are a podcast host, and I consider you one of these guys because you are an influencer, you've got a big following. But when you're trying to engage with next level guests, for example, so let's talk about a podcast, for example. I feel like, well, they're probably checking me out. So there's times when people are pitching me all the time, I can say no. But then there's times when I want to reach out to an A-list guest. Am I being overly concerned about that, Jerry, in your experience, or just, what thoughts do you have about that?
Yes and no. There are, I know people who have had a very small show, but they've had like Seth Godin on, who, has written multiple best-selling books and is, really well known in the marketing space. I mean, if you don't know his name, he's a huge deal. And I think it's all about then, building a relationship with that person. When you reached out to me and you said, hey, I'm a customer and here's what the show's about. I liked the premise. You told me when we got on, especially your audio show is growing like crazy. I was like, that's awesome. Congratulations. I didn't know any of that. I liked the premise. We sort of had a previous relationship. I liked where this conversation I think is going to go. And so that's why I said yes. So yes, if you if you can prove, I've got all of these downloads, and my past guests have been these other big people, then yeah, of course that carries things, but it's not a requirement, and it never should be. I would say if you're just pitching cold, then you're going to have a harder time. But if you are pitching, and you've built a relationship first, either you started commenting on LinkedIn or Instagram or things like that, you're going to open a lot more doors that way.
Yeah. Yeah. There is a whole art to the pitch. And God, I'm sure you see this too. The AI generated pitches I get on a daily basis are just god awful. So it really does. I just messaged a guy today. It was probably one of the best pitches I've seen in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, you're on, you're going to be on. Yes. It was an awesome pitch. So, well, let's get back.
I got one today that said, hey, first name.
Yeah, that's it. So let's get back to YouTube for guys over 50. I got to believe that while there's some inherent, challenges like we've talked about, or maybe some, head trash eye things as you get older, there's also a lot of advantages. So in your experience, a guy that's over 50, what advantages does he have over some young creator?
When short form video first became a big thing, 2020, TikTok was blowing up and things like that. And it seemed to just be, people dancing and, the most coordinated people in the world, some of the most advanced video production and editing I've ever seen. And if you didn't spend a lot of time on these platforms then, including when Reels came to Instagram, then you literally saw some of the best produced videos in the world. And you go, oh my gosh, I can't do that. That's crazy. Or I don't look that good in a bikini, or, whatever it might be. And so it was one of those things where a lot of my clients at the time were like, I can't do that. So I started telling people, I'm like, look, I'm at the time it's like, I'm a dorky dad in my 40s whose love language is dad jokes. I wear superhero t-shirts most of the time. I own a sun hat from Amazon where one of the reviews literally said, great for remaining celibate. That's why you should wear this hat. So, and I had success with short form video. So you don't have to be that. But the advantages that you have obviously are experience, wisdom, the ability to talk to people in their 30s and 40s in a way that people in their 20s could never talk about anything. And of course, just whatever your specific passion or expertise is. I mean, by the time you're 50, you've probably got more different things that you can pull from and choose a subject if you didn't necessarily have a subject yet. So lots of opportunity there that you never would have had at 20.
And I think we should clear up the misconception that to be on YouTube doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a full-time content creator, right? I mean, yes, no. You can choose, but what are some ways, and you help a lot of people get on YouTube, improve their channels, et cetera. What are some ways, if I don't want to be a full-time YouTuber, I can leverage YouTube?
So the first thing I like to really kind of explain to people about this is how YouTube works compared to other content platforms. And this is important to know whether you have been trying to grow on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, or you've never really posted content on any platform. But when you put up a video on any of the other platforms, you hopefully will get views for a few days. Maybe it'll do really well, and then it pretty much dies, right? Like it's over. And on YouTube, videos you put up can live on for years and years. For example, I have videos from the year I started, 2017, which is now like 9 years ago, that are getting 400 to 500 views a month right now. Like this month is getting 400 to 500 views. And by the way, like one of them I know of, I released in December of 2017. It got 16 views in its first month, and it's getting 400 to 500 views a month now. So just to put that into perspective, when you publish a video on YouTube, it's like investing in the stock market or even a savings account. It doesn't dwindle over time. It absolutely grows over time. But then what happens is the compounding effect. So the first year I was on YouTube, 2017, I started mid-August. So it was like 4.5 months, and I got a little over 1,100 views in 4 months. This is where a lot of people quit, right? Like, oh my gosh, I made 17 videos or whatever that would be weekly, and I got 1,000 views. That's not worth it, and I quit. Well, then the next year in 2018, a full year on YouTube, I got 300,000 views. And the year after that, I got 1.2 million. And the year after that, I got 2 million. So what happens on YouTube is the new video you put up gets views, and then your older videos continue to get views. So you're not just uploading videos, trying to reach new people. You are literally building this evergreen library of content. And there's just no other way to do that. And I make way more off of my videos that came out in 2025 and 2024 and 2023 right now than the ones I'm publishing right now. The ones I'm publishing right now are for 2028. And so that's just the first thing to know. But back to your question about how do I not become a full-time content creator, or, I don't want to be an influencer. There's two paths you can take on YouTube. There is the creator and influencer path. And those are people who make their money by basically selling other people's offers. So if YouTube shares their ad revenue with you, it's the commercials that run on your videos. If you have affiliate links for companies and you make a commission on things you promote, then that's that. If you have sponsorships, that's that influencer side. Then there's the entrepreneur business owner side. And on that side, that's where you make money off of your own offers. And that side is faster and easier. I told you I got my first client 11 days after I started publishing on my channel. But more than that, it can take way less time because you can start monetizing right away, as opposed to nobody's going to sponsor your video until you've built a decent sized loyal audience. So the key, though, to all of this, like how do I not make this take all the time in the world, comes down to 3 letters: ROE, return on effort. So everything that I do is based on this. And by the way, my signature YouTube program is called the YT90 Activation Lab. The whole thing is how do you grow a lead generating channel in 90 minutes a week? Like that's how far down we've gotten it. And I started that because I got tired of people saying, I'll start YouTube next year. And I was like, no, it's going to take some time. So you got to start building it like a side hustle. But the biggest return on investment on YouTube is long form videos. If you can make one long form video a week about something that somebody is interested in, you can absolutely grow over time. Shorts, live streams, podcasts, memberships. There's so many other things on YouTube that can be a distraction, but they're not going to make the biggest impact long term. And so when you think about the return on effort, that's where it starts, is 1, long form video a week. Second part, we already talked about letting go of perfection. Don't obsess over editing, like crazy. People think fancy editing makes a big difference. YouTube did this big study where they connected sensors to people's brains. It doesn't. Emotional connection with the person on the screen makes 10 times of the impact of viewer satisfaction than having lots of graphics and music and things like that. So when people, watch this show, Mike, obviously they're feeling a connection to you. They're feeling emotion about being over 50, the relatability of that. They're feeling inspired to hopefully go out and do something that they wouldn't have done before listening to whatever episode that they listened to. So there's that emotional part. So we don't worry about editing. We make sure they can see and hear you, but you don't have to have a set as fancy as Mike's. You just need a place where they can see and hear you. And from there, focus on what you're going to say in the video, your title and your thumbnail. Those are the things that have the highest ROE, return on effort. And so when you only focus on those things, you're not going to get all the results, but you're going to get 80% of the results with 20% of the work.
Yeah, love that. Gosh, you hit so many things there, Jerry. I want to see if I can remember and go back. So let's just some quick questions.
Yeah.
What if a guy's thinking about this? I mean, what's a real, and you're talking to me right now, so just look at me and tell me the answer. What's a realistic expectation? Like, before you say, hey, this is worth doing or not doing, it's surely not measured in days or weeks, I would think. But what do you think is a realistic expectation to, if you're going to get into this, plan on at least this time and doing the work for this many months and then make a determination if this is right?
So for me, when I started this, I still had a full-time job. I had 2 kids under 8. There was, my wife worked evenings, so I was single dad every night for school pickup, dinner, bath time. Like I didn't have a lot of time. I wasn't going to even start unless I could do this in a couple of hours a week. And this was before AI, so things took a little bit longer then. But I said, okay, I'm going to publish 1 video a week for a year and see what happens. Had I not done that, I absolutely would have quit at least 3 or 4 times in the first 6 months. My first 6 months, I saw little to nothing. Now what I tell people, if you're going to start and have a strategy, not just, I'll throw some stuff up, or I'll take my Facebook Lives I'm already doing and throw them up on YouTube. If you're going to actually have a strategy, I say commit to 6 months, 1 video a week for 6 months. If you can't do that, then you're going to there's going to be days where you're going to feel like it's not worth it. I guarantee. And if you're not ready for those days, then you'll quit on those days. But if you've said, no, I'm going to, it's 26 videos or whatever, right? I'm going to publish every week for 6 months with a good strategy. And then, yes, I say you're ready to go. If you're not willing to do that, then I say, don't even bother starting.
Yeah. I mean, I think 6 months is probably a fair minimum to at least give it some time. The other thing I want to touch on, because it can be a big shiny object, is monetization. I do know there are some people, maybe a lot of people, that are making quite a living on YouTube. I don't necessarily want to focus on those people. But when somebody is toying with, and they have a decent idea, should monetization of, let's say, the influencer type now, not the your own products or services, is that something that should get in the way? Is that something that should really be considered? Because again, there are people making a lot of money from YouTube just because their numbers are so good.
Of course, yeah. And there are times in my business where I'm selling my offers and, maybe something doesn't go the way that I planned. I think about some of my friends that literally just focus on their YouTube views and they're making, all this money from that. And I think, oh, that seems nice. The grass is always greener. But I think it's important to think about from the beginning, unless you're just so passionate about it that you don't care if anybody watches, you definitely want to factor it in. My wife is thinking about starting a YouTube channel, which I'm really excited about. And we were talking about it at lunch yesterday, and she had this idea, and we were talking it through. And one of the questions I asked was, okay, well, how are you going to monetize this? Now, she also is, my partner in my company, and she's not doing it because it's like, oh my gosh, we've got to save the house or anything like that. We're okay on money, but she definitely wants there to be some payoff at some point. And so I don't think you have to have the question answered, how am I going to make money on day one? But it's something to at least be thinking about if that's important to you. Like, will this audience be something I can sell something to, whether it's my product or somebody else's product someday? Because if nobody has anything to sell to that audience, not even sponsors or, companies with affiliate programs, then you're not going to profit at all. You see a lot of people get into podcasting and they go, yeah, I'll just get those generic ads from like 1-800-Flowers and things like that, where you only get paid if somebody uses your link, right? And sure, if you've got million downloads a month, you can make money on those, but most podcasts or YouTube channels are never going to be able to do that. So I think it's good to at least have some idea of where it might go. And there's 100 ways to monetize on YouTube. And so it's not just, AdSense revenue where they share that. It's not just sponsorships. There's so many different ones.
So when you're working with clients, and let's say a guy, comes to you and he says, he's been in the workforce, what are some questions you would ask him, Jerry, before he gets started here? So, he tells you, listen, hey, Jerry, I got a good idea. I want to leverage this. What are some questions you would ask him right from the get-go?
That's a really interesting question. Well, one of them would be, are you willing to let go of perfectionism? Because if you're not, then YouTube is going to be really hard. And I say that as somebody who launched a channel on May 15th, 2017, and then immediately took everything down because I decided nothing was good enough. I already had all these videos in the can. And then I spent 3 months refilming everything, re-editing everything to debut on August 15th, 2017, and with no views because it was a brand new channel, videos that nobody ever saw. So I would say, are you willing to be less than perfect, or are you a perfectionist, and can we move on from that? The second thing, of course, I always ask any client about anything, what are your long-term goals with this? What do you expect this to look like in a year? Another one would definitely be, are you willing to put in the work and publish for at least 6 months? Or sometimes I like to say, how long are you willing to work for free without knowing whether or not this will work? Because somebody's like, well, I tried publishing every day on Instagram for a month and I didn't really get anywhere. It's like I can't help that person, right? They've got something else going on where they're going to quit. And I don't want somebody to pay me to quit in 30 days either.
Right. One of the videos, and correct me if I'm wrong here, and I see a lot of 50 plus men and women doing these kind of videos. I'm kind of like, wow, maybe I should have done that kind of thing. But a podcast is a specific thing. I'm already doing the conversation. It made sense to clean it up a little bit and put it as a video. One of the videos I watch a ton of, and I wouldn't necessarily even put yours is, because I think yours is even a step up from this. It's the put the camera on me, it's down and dirty, it's the opposite of what you were saying earlier. And it's just somebody, either they might be walking, they might be at the gym, they might be in a home studio, whatever it might be. And it's really just them talking about a specific topic. And I find those kind of YouTubes myself just many times so helpful. Mm-hmm. And you do this every day. You talk to people all the time about this. Is that one of the easiest types of quote channels to start, that kind of simple production?
I think it depends on the person. But sometimes when I'm trying to help people understand that you don't need fancy production, I talk about a woman named Maggie who is a coach, and she I think she's over 200,000 subscribers now, but her channel started with videos of her literally walking through the park, holding up her phone. Like it's rainy day, her hair's the mess. She's got, women have pointed out, like, she's not even wearing any makeup. There's no graphics, there's no music, there's nothing. It's just her talking. It's very raw, it's very real. And those are the videos that blew up her channel. So absolutely, you can do it that way. You just have to make sure, again, that you're giving value. And I think some people know their things so well, they can just rant and give that kind of value. Other people, you're going to have to put a little bit more work in. I don't recommend fully scripting your videos because, one, it takes a really long time, and two, you often end up being stiff when you actually deliver it. But I do recommend outlining your videos so you kind of know what you're going to talk about, the journey that you're going to take somebody on. And it's hard for a lot of people, myself included, unless it's something I've rehearsed a million times, which I'm not going to do because we have editing. It's hard for somebody to just walk and talk and get all of that in. So, but I love a good walk and talk video. I recorded an episode of my podcast, which is called Done by Lunch, on a hike one day. But I had notes on my phone and I was holding up my DJI Pocket camera, and later I was going to edit it together. Didn't stand out. Nobody seemed to notice or care, but I had fun doing it. But yeah, I mean, I think whatever's easiest for you is whatever's easiest for you to give the value that you want to give in your videos, whether that's education, entertainment, inspiration. That's the best format for you.
Very good. And is there any thought process, Jerry, when you're working with clients, like, hey, Mike, that's a good idea for a YouTube channel, or that might not be the best thing to do? Are there any factors there, or topics, or is there something that would be a big red flag if someone said, hey, Jerry, I want to start this channel with these types of videos, and you'd be like, I don't think so?
I was at Vid Summit last October, which is one of the biggest YouTube conferences in the world. And I was at a happy hour and I met this woman, and she's like, what's your channel? I told her, and I said, what's your channel? And then she told me about her subscriber numbers and her views and everything like that. Wildly successful. And I was like, oh, cool. What do you do on your channel? And she said, I record myself cleaning my house every week, and then I publish it. And that's her channel. She literally, and she's getting like 40,000 people will watch front to back every week. And now what she does is she records herself without talking, and then she narrates like whatever is on her mind. And after having a conversation with this woman for an hour, I was like, she's fascinating. I'd listen to her, talk. But that's her whole channel. And she's got sponsors and everything like that. And so I would never have the ego to say, well, that won't work. What I would do is I would tell you, look, we need to figure out who is the exact person that you're talking to. So this is not the time where we say, oh, this could be helpful for people in the workplace as well as for senior citizens trying to communicate with their caregivers or anything like that. Like, we can't, it's got to be one person that we're talking to about one general topic throughout the whole channel. Now, there are vlog style channels where it's just the person's personality, and that's a different model. But otherwise, you want it to be very specific, because then YouTube understands who to recommend your videos for. I mentioned about how YouTube is recommending videos from smaller channels now. And the reason for that is because when you upload a video to YouTube, it used to be that it would see your title, it would see your description, and eventually it knew what you were saying in the video because it could automatically generate a transcript. But now, because the algorithm has AI, it can sense the emotion, the tone, it can see what's on the screen, it can see your facial expressions, it can see the background. And so the algorithm is much better at watching a video and going, would people like this? I wonder, deciding if people like this. So they don't make you, it used to be, at least the belief was, you had to publish week after week after week to just sort of prove to YouTube that you were making an effort before they'd start suggesting your videos to new people. But that new channel I started 2 weeks ago got impressions and views on the very first day with me not telling anybody about it. So that's one of the things that's changed. But the key is this: you have to make videos for the same person, generally helping them or talking about the same general topic. Because without that, if you say, yeah, I think I want to talk about my horseback riding and my knitting as well as my AI skills, YouTube is going to get so confused and they won't know who to show your videos to.
And what about, I think one of the other new directions, and correct me again if I'm wrong here, is something called YouTube collaborations or YouTube collaborators. Is that something that is going to help people getting started with their channel? If so, just, what is that? What is that, first of all?
Yeah. So YouTube collaborations is basically where 2 channels or more than 2 channels, I think it might be up to 5, can release a video together. So, this has been on Instagram for several years now. So if you and I, like when this episode comes out, you could invite me to be a collaborator on it. And then it would say from Mike and from Jerry. Now, the theory is that then your audience would see it, my audience would see it, and people that had things in common between our audiences would be recommended the video. Now, on Instagram, when they came out with this, I saw this work over and over again. I used to take clips from my podcast with my guests, and I would release it as a collaboration between the 2 of us, and it would absolutely go out to both persons' followers and other people in between, and they're the biggest reels I've ever had because of that. YouTube, but I haven't done it in a while, so I can't necessarily see that still happening now. I'm yet to see anybody having success with that on YouTube where it's making a big impact. And I've tested with a few friends where it's like, hey, I've done some videos for some friends' channels, or I've been a guest on a podcast. Hey, if you want to add me as a collaborator, go ahead and do it. So in theory, yes, it could be great, but and I think it's worth asking for if you do have somebody else in your video, but realistically, I haven't seen anybody say, yes, this absolutely works.
Yeah. And I think it's relatively new, correct?
Oh yeah, last couple of months at
so
best.
maybe it'll refine.
Now that I'm going to have 2 channels, I'm absolutely going to do it between my 2 channels. That is something that I think is just a no-brainer, and a way to grow, this second channel faster. But in general, because they're both kind of for the same audience, the second one's a little more niche down. But in general, nobody has seen it, be incredibly impactful yet.
Jerry, is there anything else I didn't ask you or that you'd want to share? Again, guy over 50 who's thinking about this, is there just, whether it's on the front end, during, on the back end, after the video is done, is just one last thought you'd want to share?
If you are going to do this, if you walked away from this and you're like, okay, it's happening, I'm now going to publish on YouTube, I'm going to make this thing happen. I think it comes down to a simple question that I ask myself all the time. Is this important or is it not? So decide if it's important or it's not. And I tell people all this all the time. If you decide YouTube's not for you, that's fine. Mm-hmm. That is a great decision. That is a better decision than I'm going to keep thinking about it. Because it'll become next month, it'll become next year, and then you'll hear me on another podcast in 10 years from people going, what is it like to start a YouTube channel for people over 60? And I don't want that to happen for you. So decide it's important or decide it's not. And if it's important, find a strategy that you feel aligned with. It can be from me or it can be from somebody else, and then commit to it for 6 months.
And the other recommendation there would be definitely check out Jerry's courses, your resources. I'm going to ask you right now to share how my audience can learn more about what you do. Again, I am a customer. That's how I learned about you. I subscribe to your channel. I love your videos. Just very authentic, laden with a ton of great information. So where can my audience get connected with you, Jerry?
I appreciate that, Mike. So I want to send you to a free resource that's going to do 2 things for you. One, it is going to help you decide if YouTube is going to work for you or if it's just going to be another time suck. So it's just kind of a quick assessment so that you don't start and all of a sudden it's taking you 70 hours a week. And then the second thing that it does is it really maps through how to do it with that high ROE return on effort so that whatever efforts you are putting in are going to pay you back as big as possible. So I call it the YT90 roadmap, and you can get it at yt90roadmap.com.
One more, I'm going to sneak in one more quick question, if you don't mind. Do you recommend, if people are afraid of the amount of work, and there's a lot of potential technical work, do you recommend they outsource that right from the get-go?
I generally don't. Now, if you're somebody who this is something you're starting on the side, you know, you're making really good money, you've got disposable income, and you want to pour it into something, then yeah, that might just be something that you want to do. You know, as I help people build businesses, sometimes I see people who come in with lots of disposable income and they immediately outsource everything. And then the other people are like, wow, it must be nice. You know, because for a lot of us, we have to learn everything ourselves because we don't have that luxury in the beginning. So, but I'm a big fan of doing things yourself and then outsourcing if you choose to, simply so that you understand how it works. I've seen too many people get burned over the years by editors, agencies, marketing people, ads people, whatever, because they have no idea what's going on. They just agree to cut them a check. There's a dated reference. Pay them however much a month, and when it's not working right away, they're usually really good at talking about why, and then they keep paying them, waiting for it to kick in. And so I love figuring out how to do things on my own, and I recommend that for most people as well.
So Jerry, as we wrap up here, I have my Unstoppable After 50 trifecta. It's 3 quick questions, 3 quick answers, and I'm going to tweak these for our conversation today. So
okay.
What is a hard
and what,
truth?
Remind the rules again, is that I have 30 seconds to answer?
Yeah, about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Though most people don't listen. What's a hard truth that a guy over 50 needs to hear who is still loves what we're talking about, but is still really challenged by thinking I need to put myself out there on YouTube?
It might not work. I mean, that's the hard truth. There's no guarantee. Now, if you follow a strategy, then that increases the chances a lot, but it might be that people are not interested in the topic that you're talking about, or any number of things. And so, but I would rather try and find out that than, become 60 or 70 and go, oh, I wish I'd done that.
What's something that maybe someone who has a current YouTube channel, which is not as successful as it could be, what could they possibly be doing that is wrecking their chance for real YouTube success?
They're probably confusing the algorithm. Just like we talked about, I had a client that signed on a couple weeks ago, and she has a channel where she teaches interior design, but she was making videos for real estate agents who wanted to stage homes. She was making videos for homeowners who wanted their homes to look nice. And she was making videos for Airbnb owners who wanted their Airbnbs to look nice. It's all the same topic, but YouTube struggles to know who to serve her videos to. And so she wasn't growing. So that would be probably the biggest thing, is you're having to promote your own videos. YouTube's not promoting them because it doesn't know how.
Love it. Love it. And Jerry, if someone is watching or listening to us right now and they said, you know what, Jerry, Mike, they inspired me, I'm going to do this. What should they start doing this week so they can be unstoppable with their YouTube channel in the future?
I would definitely recommend getting that free YT90 roadmap, but also allow yourself to sit with it, but sit with the idea with optimism instead of pessimism. We tend to think of all the reasons why we can't do something or why something won't work. Last week, I was on spring break with my kids in Phoenix, and I did the Camelback Mountain hike, which is mostly climbing rocks. It is a challenging hike. I think it's 1,500 vertical feet in about a mile and a half. And I almost quit multiple times. It was a really hot morning. I was tired. I think I went out too fast, and I love hiking. And I just kept thinking of all the reasons that I should quit and turn around before I got to the top. And on my way up, a guy came flying down the mountain faster than anybody else that I'd seen. And he had one leg. He had the biggest excuse of any of us to not show up that day. But he had his 2 crutches and he has one leg, and he flew up Camelback Mountain and back down. And it was just such a great reminder that we spend too much time trying to talk ourselves out of things instead of thinking, what if this works? What would that make possible for me? And so I would encourage you to sit with your idea and think about it with optimism and what would it take to make this work rather than all the reasons that it might not.
Love it. And you're right. We so often default to the other side, don't we?
We're flawed
Probably
humans.
even more so as you get older, too. So, hey, Jerry, again, thank you for helping me personally with your resources, your channel. Thank you for coming on today. And I hope you and I inspired a few guys to get out there and start their own YouTube channel.
Yeah, I love it. I'd love to hear from anybody that does, because I love hearing the stories as well. So great conversation today. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Jerry, and I hope we inspired you to seriously consider either starting your own YouTube channel, or if you have one, and dust it off and maybe get back out there. It's a great opportunity to maybe extend your expertise into a whole new world. And if you like what I'm doing here with Unstoppable After 50, please make sure you like and subscribe to the show. Go check out the YouTube channel. Appreciate you subscribing there. And also make sure you check out unstoppableafter50.com and sign up for my weekly playbook. Every week I send a recap to my group of men who've asked for it, a PDF that's designed to be printed and saved, and it's a recap of that previous week's episode. So check out unstoppableafter50.com.